Welcome back to this Eladi Sunday Talk Show here on the RIS News Channel. With me, I have Professor Bola Akinterinwa, Director General, Bola Center for International Diplomacy and Strategic Studies, and Yemi Adamolekun, Executive Director, Enough is Enough. Well, Yemi and Prof, quite a number of topics. Census, big issue. Suspension of fuel subsidy removal, and the other gentleman, the president of the Nigerian Labour Congress, who spoke about May Day, which will be tomorrow, and the plight of workers in Nigeria, and the politics of, Labour cannot come to Eagle Square, and then how, that decision was changed, and his submissions with regard to the plight of workers in Nigeria. Let me start with you, Yemi Adamolekun.
Right. Okay, let's start with Census. The last set of questions you asked him, for me, were quite instructive, in the sense that we saw INEC say they have everything ready, BVAS, IREV.
INEC, you mean NPC?
INEC. No, INEC.
Okay.
Independent National Electoral Commission.
Okay.
Said they had everything ready, BVAS, IREV, and all of that technology-wise. They had tested it in some states. But then on election day, they now said either their system was hacked or the pressure or whatever. NPC has also gone on to say that they're using technology, they're doing a digital census, blah, blah, blah. They have homegrown technology that they've developed. But the question is, who has tested them? If INEC had the kind of challenges that it had, that we haven't had an audit of what happened, what went wrong, and the NPC wants to literally do exactly the same thing without anybody questioning it, I think it's just, quite frankly, very unwise. So the postponement, as you rightly said, could it not have been predicted? Because it just really didn't make sense. After an election, using systems that had not been tested. The questionnaire, nobody has seen it. There was a newspaper report, I believe, on Friday, where a freedom of information request had been done to the NPC to ask about their budget, their process, and they declined. Freedom of information is a law. We can write to anybody, any government agency or any private company doing business with government to ask for information. So if you're so clear that you are ready, everything is in place, everything that you need to do is getting done, why are you not able to share information? And then they then went to court. And I believe the judge says they have to present them with papers, I guess. So that's that. 2, you asked about the different databases. Yes, we can have different databases, but they must speak to themselves. So I do agree with the gentleman that was on the show that Census doesn't need to collect biometrics. NIMC is doing that. But he should be clear that they're talking to themselves. So as you are enumerating people and knowing who is who in Nigeria, you should then know who has an NIN. You should then know who is banked. We keep talking about the unbanked. Is this not a good time to connect those dots so we can actually speak to real developmental issues? He talked about, and I think it was very funny how he was talking about how different countries have continued to do census regularly and how important is it for planning, blah, 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 blah. But Nigeria hasn't done one in 60 years. I think that says very clearly that we're not particularly interested in planning with data. And the fact that we're planning this way also shows why that we're not interested in planning with data. And then lastly, money. You talked about money. And quite frankly, I'm a bit confused. Because in one vein, they say they don't have enough money. In another vein, they say they have all the money that they need. So what really is the situation? But overall, I'm extremely glad that it has been postponed. Because even beyond those issues, let's even say the census went ahead. They hadn't declared, for example, if we're going to have public holidays or not. But let's say the census went ahead. Is the NPC going to then be done with analyzing that data before the declared president and his team come in? And if that doesn't happen, if he changes the people in the commission, then a new set of people would work with the data. Makes no sense whatsoever. So on that, that's that on census. On fuel subsidy, also not surprising in my view, because it was clear they said they're not removing it till June. Now they say it's postponed. Like, how are you saying it's postponed? You are minister now. So if you're going to remove it in June, it's not going to be done under you. So I'm really a bit confused about why we're even having this conversation now. Because by June, there's a declared president who is going to be sworn in on May 29. How is it your business then what happens in June? And why are you are postponing something you have no control over? I'm just really very confused. The economist that was here, I think his point around how the APC government took advantage of citizens' outburst, really, because it was the Occupy Nigeria protest became very politicized by the APC because it worked for them since they were opposition at the time. And in 8 years, from President Muhammadu Buhari saying subsidy is a scam, he said that before he came in. He said that before he came in, and then a few months after he came in, he increased the price of fuel. And in that 8 years, not only is he the president of the country, he's also the Minister of Petroleum. And he hasn't said anything. To be honest, I don't even think President Buhari understands the oil and gas regime, but it will be interesting to see. The economist also made the point that the declared president initially said subsidy will be removed, and now he's saying we will see. So it'll be very interesting to see what happens in June. We have subsidy in our budget till June, so we'll see what happens. And then lastly, on this issue of borrowed money, I mean, the 800 million is committed funds. I'm not sure that we've received it, so I'm not quite sure where the worry with that is. I'll leave it at that.
Professor Akinterinwa, your take on the three major subjects that we have discussed so far.
Let us begin with the postulation of Mokhtar Mohammed, the economist. He made a number of points with which I do agree. And there are some, especially even with what Dr. Ruben Abati told us, that I do not agree with. For instance, I agree with Mokhtar from the perspective that if we do have 800 million, dollars borrowed, and he said $57 million out of it will be for logistics. And he also talked about 90, I couldn't get that particular percentage he was talking about. Okay, 90% is talking about the debt management office. That what the debt management office was simply doing was to reckon with the debt ratio to the GDP, and they are not factoring in, revenue ratio, to it. I agree with him, because those two constitute two parallel lines. If we are talking about the need, all right, to be self-reliant, to be self-dependent in managing our economies, not excessively dependent on the Bretton Woods institutions, I will agree with him. Where I disagree with Dr. Ruben Abati there is that he told us that we cannot prevent the government of Nigeria from borrowing. No, we can prevent, we can stop. Apart from going through the democratic processes, the National Assembly, you see, any reckless borrowing should not be entertained. It is simply because a school of thought to which Dr. Abati apparently belongs to. That's why the government can wake up in the morning, take loan in the afternoon, in the evening renew. No. You see, how, for instance, will a government take 800 million US dollars, reserve 57% for logistics, and now be donating, giving money to different people as palliatives? How can you be borrowing in order to give palliatives? His emphasis is the fact that we are borrowing for consumption, not more for productivity. This is the problem. So I think that if our debt is increasing, quote and unquote, from a perspective, very recklessly, and then you will not be in power to manage the loans in such a way that will be able to repay, I think is giving Nigeria a very bad name in the future. At a point in time in international economic relations, we know that some Latin American countries consciously, deliberately take all these loans with the intention to eventually repudiate. They know that at the end of the day, well, you push us to the wall.
Loan forgiveness.
Yeah, loan forgiveness, all those things. If this is the strategy of our government, without saying it, it is still most unfortunate. Because at the end of the day, you can see that the strategic calculation of President Muhammadu Buhari is just to engage in a policy implementation and leaving the consequences for the next administration to deal with it. I'm not unaware of the fact that the president-elect, if he's coming in, will continue. So you remove Buhari from there, another Buhari comes in, because Senator Bola Tinubu has told us that he will continue from where Muhammadu Buhari stops. So it's a change in person, a change of a president, but continuity of the same policy. Now when you come to the issue of the labor, you see, I shouldn't go to labor without mentioning one point raised by Mokhtar Mohammed. He said, he talked about lack of honesty. We've been talking about that here. We've been talking about it. So when I'm going to link that one to the issue of census, the cardinal point there is that, look, all these things we are talking about, you have technology, technology will stop this, technology will stop that. Beautiful stories, declaratory statements. It is more of garbage in, garbage out. Was there no technology under INEC chairman? It is how you manipulate the machine itself that is the issue. Now you did ask a question. You asked 2, 3, 4 questions that I noted that were not responded to, that they tangentially mentioned. They didn't respond. Why is census problematic in Nigeria? Why is it political? There was no good explanation to it, and unless I didn't hear very well, or as they say, professors are absent-minded. But this time I wasn't absent-minded.
Not Professor Akinterinwa.
Yes, because I heard very well. I was attentive. Taking
no, you are a very active 70-year-old plus.
so you see,
nobody
here,
will say you are absent-minded.
Census is problematic. It's very political in Nigeria simply because of the honesty or dishonesty of purpose. It's as simple as that. Yeah. Please, when you go back to the census, population census conducted in the 1930s before independence.
The last one was in 1901 under the British.
No, not 1901.
And then 1952-53.
No,
under the British.
There was a census in the 1930s, I think 1938 or something like that. Place where, for instance, the population of the Yoruba and the Igbo was made clear. Is there? I will find the reference for you. I am very sure that there was one because I've written on it in the past.
But so, after independence, Nigerians have not been able to conduct successfully.
Yes, we will not be able to conduct it simply because of dishonesty. Yes, it's as simple as that. Whether you want
the man was saying now it will be digital.
I am telling you now that it is the digitization itself. In fact, you are bringing about scientific corruption, scientific stealing, dishonesty, scientific dishonesty. It's as simple.
I have some faith in your country.
It's not a question of not being faithful. Please, what ought to be is quite different from what is. I'm now giving my own analysis on the basis of what is. That's the issue. So you see, we should not, I like Nigerians, the way we debate, etc. all along. You leave the fundamental question, you set it aside, then you are now dealing, with the secondary issues. People, if you go to Buka or restaurant, Buka is a local name for restaurants. for people who are well tied, for middle level officials. They differentiate between error and ora. Error is meat. Ora is the oily, the cholesterol aspect there. So please, if you want to eat error, eat meat. If you want to eat the ora, which is there, you prepare for the cholesterol, the implication. Now we must stop dealing with secondary issues. So for instance, census, if they are if they are postponing it, please, how can you say that you are postponing when you already told us that you are ready? You are ready. Now, this simply means that, look, in Nigeria, institutions still remain perfectly weak. And this is why you can now delegate or postpone an election for subsequent
okay, thank you very much. Thank you very much, Prof. We'll go straight to the next topic, which is the federal government of Nigeria has commenced moves to avert the planned strike by the Nigerian Association of Nigerian Doctors by initiating high-level discussions with the doctors. The national body of resident doctors had risen from an extraordinary meeting on Saturday to give the federal government 2 weeks to meet its demands or face industrial disharmony. The meeting was summoned to discuss money issues affecting the welfare of the doctors and the alarming rate of their flight to other countries, as well as that of other healthcare workers on account of poor remuneration, inadequate funding of the health sector, and the attendant negative effect on the citizens. Among other things, they are demanding an immediate increment in the consolidated medical salary structure to the tune of 200% of the current gross salaries of doctors, well, resident doctors. We have been on this matter for more than 8 years. Government keeps promising COMMES. That consolidated salary structure is called COMMES. So the doctors are saying arrears have not been paid. COMMES has not been implemented. In January, the National Association of Resident Doctors even served notice. Before then, they even gave 6 months notice. So now, we face a situation where these resident doctors would down tools. One of their demands is that this whole idea of that, doctors in Nigeria must serve for compulsory 5 years is unacceptable. They say the bill must be withdrawn, but we don't have the powers to dictate to a process that has been initiated in the National Assembly. Yemi Adamolekun. Let me start with you.
Certainly. Our elected officials of the National Assembly are elected by people. So what you vote for on the floor of the National Assembly is meant to be a reflection of what your constituents work. Now, is that always the case? No. But I think what then needs to be tested is how forceful they can be in getting citizens to rally around. First of all, this assembly, 9th assembly, is on its way out. I'm not sure if the person who proposed the bill is coming back, because that also influences if it's stepped down or not. When we talked about it the last time, the Senate committee, the chair of healthcare in the Senate, medical doctor, is against the bill. So even if it scales through the House of Rep, I'm pretty sure it will be killed in the Senate. But I think symbolically, the resident doctors are making a claim that it should be withdrawn to show that they are responding to their demands. And I think it's important because the crux of the matter is that, again, back to Professor Akinterinwa's point, there's a dishonesty about what the issues are. So bonding people who you are not giving an opportunity to serve that they want to serve doesn't make any sense. Is the education subsidized? Yes. But what about doctors that go to private schools where they pay full fare? Now, so would you now say, okay, if you went to a private school, we'll give you your license. However, if you go to a public school, which the government has subsidized, we won't give you a license. And what then does that mean to the people that they would practice on? So the point is, look, as Professor Akinterinwa keeps saying, there's a dishonesty in what this is about. And the people that they're protesting against, for the most part, actually don't use them in terms of medical services. I don't know if it's you that said it on one of the shows, that people travel abroad for headache. So I think... And toothache, exactly. So I think it's finding a balance between, one, the people who are promoting the bill who are coming back. This were in a sort of lame duck era for this presidency because they're on their way out. So if they decide they want to wait this thing out for 4 weeks, what happens?
Professor Akinterinwa, the Minister of Health, Dr. Anire, he says government is working on the matter. And at the moment, he is out of the country on some special...
I'm just asking.
No, he didn't talk about health problems. He said he's on an assignment out of the country. But our government is working on the matter. For how long will government work on this matter? You have been in government before. You are Director General of in fact, of a policy-making body. So,
you have come again this week with this same issue. The government is working. Nobody is saying government is not working, but how is it working? And what is it working for? What's the purpose? For who? Yes, precisely. What's the working for? You see, at the epicenter of our discussion on political governance in Nigeria, the Bible tells us that a country, a government, the people will have the president, the leader, they put in place. Now, I do support, for instance, the NARD, the National Association of Resident Doctors, asking for 200% increase. In fact, I'm surprised why they are asking for 200% and not more than that. And in this case, you have a government that will just sit down under the pretext that you have given free education, quote and unquote, to the medical students, and therefore they must serve. Education by the 1999 Constitution as amended is a right. Education is a right. It's not a privilege. Left to me, it's a right. So, if, for instance, the government...
But that's primary and secondary, though.
It's still part of it. It's cumulative. Education is cumulative.
I know, but just, I mean...
So, at the university level, yes, you can...
It says if they have money, tertiary education will also be free.
Yes, but in this case, if they are not doing so, what happens in Libya under Muammar Gaddafi?
I don't know.
Oh. Now, let me tell you. Just give me 1 minute. Let me tell you that a senator in Nigeria earns the highest in the whole world. Our own senators. Now, their yearly take home is 353,756,988 naira. Now, if you look at the breakdown on a yearly basis, on a monthly basis, they take home 29,479,749 naira.
On a monthly basis?
Yes.
Can I tell you the biggest challenge with that? So, just to be clear, if they show you their pay slip,
yes,
it will have a very different figure, a lower figure, which is about $1 million. No. But I think it's important, the figures you are quoting, because the crux of the problem with the National Assembly is that their budget is not public. So for an arm of government that is focused on managing the budget of the country, they're the one that approves our budget every year. Their own budget is not public.
I agree
and
with
this
you.
is the reason why.
Look, you see, we have a body agency meant to fix salaries, etc.
And they do.
National Assembly decided to be fixing its own, contrary to the
just to be clear, so we're not miseducating the audience. Their salary, they show you their pay slip as their salary. It is that. The challenge is that they have allowances that are not coded in any law, and so they share the budget of the National Assembly.
The record is available. In fact, I called Professor Alaba Ogunsanwo today to reconfirm. I went to confirm to see that, look, this thing is published by government agency. The basic salary of a senator is 2,244,245.
Yeah.
So I have the whole breakdown here. Now times 12 is equal to 353,756,988. What I'm now saying is that the resident doctor, the basic salary, although when we say resident doctor, we have the senior one, we have the junior one, and it varies from one teaching hospital, one university to the other. The issue is that the average The estimated one is about 275 or 278,000 naira per month. Times 12 is not more than 3,300,000. Now, if a resident doctor for the whole year will be having 3.3 million compared to 353 million, you are now saying that the responsibility of the senator is greater, is more important than the job a resident doctor is doing. No, political appointments may not necessarily be more important than professional appointments.
People will even say they should be part-time.
Yes, precisely. So in this case,
you know what's even worse? They get a pension. So after 4 years of work,
yeah, they still have that one.
They still get pensions.
That's what they call severance gratuity, which is 300% of the basic.
Meanwhile, your civil servants, to your point, work till they're 60 or 35 years.
Yes.
For the National Assembly members, 4 years of work. 4, 1, 2, 3, 4.
300%.
Yes.
And which is the equivalent of 7,452,736 naira 50 kobo. So you see, in this case, government not responding to their request.
Let's just hope that this time around, government working on the request of the National Association of Residents.
They have always been working.
will prevent a situation where there will be a strike. And on that note, we will take this break. When we return, the program will continue. We'll be right back. Stay with us. Welcome back to This is Live, the Sunday talk show here on the Arise News channel. It has emerged that Nigerian students who have been evacuated from Sudan will no longer arrive in Nigeria on Friday, as earlier announced by the government. This is being attributed to difficulties arising from logistics and diplomatic issues. A source close to Nigeria's foreign ministry said that as at April 28, 9 buses conveying the Nigerian evacuees had arrived at the Sudanese border, the Sudanese side of the border, while 4 other buses had in like manner arrived at the Wadi Alpha border. They're said to be waiting for clearance from the Sudanese end to cross to the Egyptian side. The source added that there are thousands of people at the borders, which could be the reason for the delay in getting Nigerians into Egypt. Meanwhile, rival factions of Sudan's military earlier in the week agreed to renew a 3-day ceasefire shortly before it was due to expire. The extension for another 72 hours follows intensive diplomatic efforts by neighboring countries, as well as the UK, the US, and the United Nations. Still in Sudan, fighting has intensified in and around Khartoum, the country's capital, shattering the latest ceasefire aimed at allowing people to flee to safety. On Sunday, the army said it was attacking the city from all directions, with airstrikes and heavy artillery to flush out its paramilitary rivals. The latest truce was due to end late on Sunday. Millions remain trapped in the capital where food is running short. Foreign countries have been evacuating their nationals amid the chaos. Well, the Sudanese crisis. Prof, you are the international affairs expert here on this show. What's your take? There have been many stories, you know, even one ambassador, Olaniyan, sending out a video of an audio tape that has been in circulation, saying, look, Nigerian nationals in Sudan who are trapped at the border. They've been threatening that they will attack embassy officials. And they were saying in that tape that, look, we are just as vulnerable as you people are. We have no hand in the issue of logistics. We have no hand in anything. Our job as diplomats is just to help with logistics, help you, get back home. And we too, we're just as vulnerable because this is a war situation. Well, I don't know whether that audio tape is authentic or not, but it is standard practice in diplomatic relations, in diplomacy, for an ambassador to say, look, the problem is in Abuja, with NEMA, with the Ministry of Humanitarian Affairs, which we don't know anything of. We're all in this crisis together. But in the meantime, the average Nigerian is aggrieved. They just want to be rescued. The same way they were rescued from Ukraine South Africa, and other parts of the world. What is at stake here?
I consciously focused on what I have called diplomatic protection of stranded Nigerians abroad. The problematic issue of emergency evacuation in my column of today in This Day is on page 43. Now, and I try to draw attention to the distinction between diplomatic protection under private international law and diplomatic protection under public international law. Because whether the audio video you are talking about,
audio tape, yeah.
Whether it is fake or not, the bitter truth is that that message, that content you have just relayed cannot but be quite relevant for discussion. Many are the issues involved. Now, the movement from Sudan to Aswan in Egypt is one leg of the issue. A second leg is the situational reality of a profiling on the ground in Egypt, while the last leg, the third leg, is flying them from Egypt to Nigeria. Now, at the level of the first leg, from Sudan to Egypt, the major problem is the complaint from the stranded people that they have actually been abandoned because they complain that government paid for 40 buses to be made available to evacuate them from Sudan to Egypt, but that only 15 buses were physically available. And the question now is, if you did pay for 40 buses to convey all the Nigerians there that have shown keen interest to return home, where are the other 25 buses? That's the first problem that is generating issue. That particular issue dovetails to the issue of a payment of $1.2 million, which the federal government officials have unhappily condemned. But the issue is that I will say you need not complain, you need not condemn Nigerians who are criticizing or draw your attention for accountability. You only need to educate them. Tell us precisely what you have done with the money, rather than saying they are criticizing you or that you negotiated within a framework of the war and the problem is not there. I conclude, please, by thanking again Allen Onyema, who on Monday openly said that he will provide.
Allen Onyema should ensure that his flights in Nigeria leave on time and his schedules are right. I'm actually quite, which is why I want us to talk about that.
That's not the issue.
No, I actually want us to talk about the next issue. No.
But he said
that's not
my point is
he offered free of service.
Why I'm saying that
the issue is about his philanthropy.
My point is that his philanthropy and his nationalism
commitment
becomes almost makes him untouchable when he's in Nigeria, putting Nigerians who are paying for their tickets under incredible inconvenience. Even the executive secretary of the Presidential Enabling Business Commission had to write a petition about him 2 days ago.
Who is that?
Jumoke Oduwole.
Jumoke Oduwole is indicting herself.
Why is she indicting herself?
No, let that point be made here.
Yeah.
Because I read that complaint.
Yeah.
And I looked at it and I said, this young woman is indicting herself.
How is she indicting herself?
Because our job is to provide ease of doing business.
Precisely.
And the airline operators of Nigeria have been protesting that they have issues with the ease of doing business. They have issues with policies of Nigeria.
But this is not a policy
with
issue.
Nigeria.
You cannot
You brought Jumoke.
No, but let me land.
Let
So you put it in context for those watching. You cannot
there's a difference.
schedule a flight at 5 a.m. and on the day of the 5 p.m. and on the day of that flight move it to 7:30 a.m. I have been personally affected at least 3 times.
This is not the subject before us.
But you were trying to, but you cannot indict Jumoke.
No, you cannot just change the subject.
But you cannot indict Jumoke without the fact.
Jumoke is indicting herself.
Without the fact.
And what she's saying does not make sense.
It makes perfect sense. How do you change a flight the morning of a flight?
Because of the position she occupies.
But the position she occupies does not enable an airline operator that does not get fined by its operating agency.
That's a different subject.
That's a different subject.
That's what we're talking about. You are changing the subject.
You cannot separate philanthropy. So you cannot be saying it's okay to be philanthropy, but in Nigeria you are abusing your citizens. I have a problem with that.
No,
I have a fundamental problem.
We are talking about Sudan this time.
But I'm saying we're not talking about Sudan in this context.
No. My own is in the context of Sudan. Because Nigerians were in a very critical situation. And
not disputing that.
You are not disputing that.
Not at all.
Then someone now says, look, free of charge, I will bring you back home.
And I'm saying that.
When the government itself is not ready and the money...
But you cannot go there without Mr. Prof. Mr. Onyema cannot arrive in Egypt or Sudan without the backing of the Nigerian government. So it's not that his philanthropy is great and the announcement is great. But if the same problem we're talking about with the Nigerian government, dishonesty, lack of an organization, misappropriation of funds, if all of those are not aligned, for him to get the permission he needs from the government, his philanthropic offer will not have manifestation. But I am also saying, to put it in also proper context, while his philanthropic offer is wonderful, and I think it's great, he did it in South Africa, he's done it in other countries.
In China?
Exactly. Let us also put it in context in the way he's treating Nigerians in Nigeria. I have been personally affected 3 times in the last 2 weeks, and it is completely unacceptable. He's not fined, he's not cautioned, and I now bring it up that an agency of government is writing about it, and you're saying that she's to be indicted.
The situation you find yourself in Nigeria,
part of the problem is that the government...
situation Nigerians find themselves in Sudan.
Nigerian government. Are we not talking about the same thing? In Nigeria, he's not cautioned. For our citizens in Sudan, they are also at the mercy of the Nigerian government. So what's the common denominator here?
The subject is not Jumoke Oduwole. That's a different thing. She's making personal complaints. And I'm saying that, look, even the aviation sector operators, they're saying if we have a better enabling environment, we will do better. And that's what they are saying.
I'm not disputing.
And that for her to be, complaining.
But let's also be clear.
So you have to look at the matter in context.
An enabling business environment, we all know doing business in Nigeria is currently difficult. And I agree, and I accept that. But there's also responsibility. There's also information. You cannot change your flight from 5 p.m. to 7:30 a.m. and inform me at 3:30 a.m.
I don't see how you have taken this conversation from Sudan to Jumoke Oduwole.
You are the one that brought up Jumoke.
No, you mentioned her.
And then you said she's indicted. And I will not sit here and let you indict her because I agree with her petition.
I'm saying so.
It's very simple. Why would you disagree?
I can write a whole essay in response.
And I'll respond to you.
Oh, yes. No, why? That's why you are educated.
In concluding that particular point, Allen Onyema is not only a good man, all right? The issue is that where Nigeria is finding it a little bit difficult to give diplomatic protection to its citizens, he offered voluntarily. That one is good enough. The way he behaves at the domestic level may not be good enough. But if you are in a situation whereby Nigerians find themselves, in between firing forces.
The point is still, Onyema cannot do it without the backing of Nigeria. That's all I'm saying.
No, yeah, but...
that's all. Since we agree on that, we're good.
No, you see, we need to understand one thing. Why is there problem at the level of how much money government has paid?
But we've been saying it's the whole conversation, dishonesty of government. And what is even our ministries talking about? Have you heard the Minister of Foreign Affairs say anything? Is it not Abike Dabiri that's speaking? The Abike Dabiri that's engaging citizens on social media. The letter that they issued, my office called all the numbers. Only one of them worked. Only one. So what are we talking about?
Fortunately, Abike Dabiri is close to the president-elect. If he comes in now, they should simply
he doesn't get inaugurated in May 29. Nigerians are in Sudan now. We can't be saying when he comes in now.
I am saying, I am talking about permanent and enduring solution to this issue of emergency evacuation. That's the purpose of this particular.
You need a functional government that prioritizes its citizens.
as
No, you need
either
a government that prioritizes the citizens, so evacuations can be done timely.
Okay, the beauty of this program.
Abikadabiri can fit in well as a foreign minister, and then
Prof.
You're lobbying for her.
Prof.
No, yeah, look, I'm not a politician. It's not lobbying. The issue you have just told me now that Abikadabiri is the one talking.
That's the one that I have seen speak. I haven't heard anything from
So
him.
I am now telling you that look, in moving forward, in ensuring the security of the Nigerian people in the future. If you have identified her as the one that is active, yes, and she's close to the something, let her just take over and then
we have to go. Thank you. The beauty of this program is that there is no programmed view. There are many perspectives, okay, from our guests to our panelists, and I think that's very interesting. Okay,
very interesting,
you've been watching This Is Live, the Sunday talk show, here on Arise News. I'm Ruben Abati from our entire team here in Lagos. It's bye for now, and thank you very much for watching.